Hey guys, it's Gabriel. Um, I haven't finished my walkthrough on Sonic Adventure just yet, but I'm gonna take a break from that for a while now. Um, I do have a very interesting uh thing to talk to you guys about today. I meant to do it earlier, but I hadn't had some things going on, and basically, I'm just, I'm basically just, a little curious, and I'm sure you guys have probably thought of this before and again, this is for the Sonic franchise. So basically, should future Sonic projects show the parents of Sonic and his friends? And which will it be, the games or the movies? Now, for some reason, I don't see Sega doing that with the games, and I'll tell you why I'm thinking of that in a moment. But one thing I just want to say real quick is that, if you play the Sonic games, none of the parents of Sonic or any of his friends were shown, and it remained unknown if they were alive or not, or if anything happened to them. But it is sort of believed that the parents of Sonic and his friends, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, and so on and so forth, are basically, dead. Yeah. And if you guys read the comics, I think in the Archie comics, now again, I haven't read any of the Sonic comics. I maybe I will someday, but I think in the Archie comics, the parents of Sonic and his friends, I mean, I'm not so sure about Amy or anyone, but I believe Tails' parents and Sally's parents, and most definitely Sonic's parents are in the Archie comics, but in the IDW comics, just like in the games, in the IDW comics, the parents are not shown, and they're either dead or alive, but just not shown. And as far as the movies are concerned, you know, as you guys know, Longclaw took care of Sonic. Yet, Sonic knows nothing about his actual biological parents. But there's obviously no doubt that they died right after he was born, which prompted Longclaw to, take care of him. And the only actual parents of any of the characters that were shown was, of course, Knuckles. If you remember in Sonic 2, there was a flashback with Knuckles as a kid and his father. And as you guys know, Knuckles lost his father at a young age. And for Tails, Tails mentioned he didn't have friends growing up, but he didn't mention anything about his parents. And, you know, basically in future Sonic projects, I'm not so sure about the games, but maybe in future projects like future films or maybe future TV shows, you know, there are people who are wanting a Knuckles season 2 and a Shadow spin-off movie, and heck, even a Tails spin-off. And depending on how some of these spin-offs go, they have to show what made the characters become who they are, or, you know, basically what led them to what they're doing. Like, if Paramount could do a TV show focusing on Sonic, then maybe we should get a chance to see what his biological parents were going through before they died and he was taken care of by Longclaw. And for the Knuckles TV series, a lot of people expected to see, you know, more of Knuckles' backstory and maybe his, situation with his father and stuff. But instead, we just see Knuckles training Wade, and somehow the show seems to have been focusing more on Wade instead of Knuckles. But who knows? If a season 2 or more seasons of Knuckles happen, who knows? Maybe they'll go more deeper into his backstory. And as for the other characters, Tails, Sonic, whether or not if their parents or biological parents, whatever you want to say, are shown, we've got to see, what led them to being the characters that we know, who, despite whatever losses they suffered or pain that they suffered, they make what they've gone through into positive by making things better. As far as the games are concerned, I definitely don't see the parents of Sonic and his friends being shown in the games, but whether or not if they will be shown, whether or not if they will be mentioned, you know, I don't know if any of you guys believe this or not, or think this, but I truly believe that in the games, and most possibly the movies as well, and yes, basically in the games, the parents of Sonic and his friends are dead. And this leads to another thing which I've talked about already. Remember my last video on how movies and games should go, where I did a video on how a spin-off Sonic game focusing on Marine the Raccoon could go? Yeah, you know, I talked with you about her personality and her reckless behavior and what made Blaze the Cat so annoyed with her, especially in the events of the game Sonic Rush Adventure. And, you know, of course we see her getting a bit better at the end of the game, but, because we haven't seen her in years and, you know, basically, again, like I said, the parents of Sonic and his friends are basically supposed to be dead. And as for Marine the Raccoon, I told you in that video as well, Eggman negative, okay? He doesn't want to rule the world like his ancestor Ivo, or his much older, or save people or help people like his much older ancestor Gerald. Eggman negative wants to destroy it. And as part of destroying the world, there's a chance that he might have killed not only Marine's parents, but her entire raccoon tribe, and maybe destroyed whatever village that they were in, which may have pushed her to be reckless, because at the end of the day, despite how happy she may seem and how energetic and enthusiastic she is, she could be sad and angry inside. And, I already talked with you guys in that video about how the game could go, and I could say it again, whether or not if Sega does a spin-off game focusing on Marine the Raccoon, it would be good where they could start off where Marine tries to do something, but something goes wrong. Blaze is a bit upset and asks her why, and next thing you know, Marine decides to share with Blaze on what really made her the way she is, and if it has anything to do with the death of her parents and the extinction of her entire raccoon tribe and her being the last one, you know, this could give Blaze a chance to understand Marine and possibly help her on her journey. And again, in Sonic Rush Adventure, she said she wanted to prove herself. And of course, we saw her crying after Blaze called her a nuisance. And, not only Marine was hurt by what Blaze called her, but part of it could also be because of a loss that she may have suffered, which is why she wanted to prove herself. And most definitely her parents have got to have been the one who taught Marine how to row the boat and how to be captain, heck, even how to fish. And and also, you know, and like I said, because Eggman Negative, the descendant of Ivo Robotnik, with him attempting to destroy the world, mainly the Soul Dimension, because he is Blaze's enemy. If he is behind the death of Marine's parents and her entire raccoon tribe, you know, this basically no matter what Sega does, if they do exactly what I'm just talking about for Marine here, this is definitely a good idea and a good opportunity to, you know, explore why Marine is the way she is. And if a game like this happens, it could take place sometime between Sonic Frontiers and whenever the Frontier sequel comes out, or maybe during one of those games. And as I was saying about how the plot of the game could go, if Marine tells Blaze why she is the way she is, and it has to do with the death of her parents and her raccoon tribe, and Eggman Negative was, behind all of that, and heck, even Captain Whisker joins in on it, then we should see Blaze, of course, being understanding and possibly help Marine during her journey. And again, I already talked about how a spin-off game focusing on Marine the Raccoon could go in that last video on how movies and games should go that I just did. And whether or not if Sega does something like this, you know, if they could do this, then hopefully maybe someday if Paramount wants to feature, you know, Marine in the Sonic movies someday, then they could definitely do something similar to what I was just talking about right now. And overall, with what I just talked about on showing why Marine is the way she is, and hopefully seeing how understanding Blaze could become on this, okay? Sega, since 2013, you know, because Amy Rose debuted in 1993, 2013 was basically her 20th anniversary. And when Sonic Lost World came out and she was in that, you guys transformed her from an overly obsessed fangirl to a girl who is a little more mature and more open-minded to, not just being friends, but also helping Sonic during his journey, yet alongside his friends. And you could do something like that with Marine, where she shares with Blaze on why she tends to be reckless at times, and the fact that the real reason is, you know, you know, that she was actually angry at Eggman Negative and even Captain Whisker for wiping out her entire raccoon tribe, including her parents. And and again, that could give Blaze an opportunity to develop an even better character of herself by helping Marine on her journey and training her to be better. And you know, I don't want to sound like I'm talking about the same thing I talked about in that last video, but the point that I'm just making is if Sega or Paramount, you know, decide to show the parents of Sonic and his friends in any future project, whether if it's the games or the movies or whatever TV show could be in development, or whatever future comics could be coming out. Sega, Paramount, Archie, IDW, no matter what you guys do, you know, when you when you guys, all of you, work together, these games and comics and movies, shows of the Sonic franchise, you had a good way of, inspiring your fans here. Especially when you see what Sonic and his friends go through, from friendship to protecting and so on and so forth. And like I mentioned in that last video, it's 2025. This is like, you know what? I'm not even going to get into that. But what do you guys think? Should future Sonic projects show the parents of Sonic and his friends? And if they do, should it just be in a flashback? Should it just be in flashbacks of these characters, and just showing how they became the characters that they are, where despite whatever they suffered, they just continue to be positive and just do the best for their people? And as far as Marine the Raccoon is concerned, what do you guys think? Like what I was just talking about. Okay? Sega, you have a good opportunity to really get Marine right. I mean, do what you guys like, because no matter what you guys do, I like you guys for what you do with the Sonic franchise. I mean, it's good. But look, you've been doing everything you could to get Amy Rose right by making her not just a bit more mature, but also a bit more serious and more brave. And you could do the same thing with Marine, especially in a situation where Blaze could be encouraging her and helping her on her journey. So overall, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments after you guys watch this video. Thank you all for watching this video, and I'll see you guys next time.